What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and I'm really excited to do a video today on Joe Biden's top 5 options to pick for his vice presidential nominee. And I just wanted to remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe right here. I have a giveaway announcement, so I've been talking about this for a while, but if I get 250 subscribers by May 15th, I will give $15 to 3 of my subscribers that I will choose at random. And how I'm probably going to do it is by Venmo. The winners can just comment what their Venmo is. But if you have any better ideas for a giveaway, I'm very new to this. This might even be against YouTube rules, so please tell me if it is before I get in trouble. But overall, my monetization goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time by the end of June. And one promise that I'll always make is to give a fraction of this money back to my subscribers, because you are really the ones that are helping me out in all this. Okay, so the first option is Michelle Obama, although I don't really think that she will be chosen. Some of her pros is that she's very popular among Democrats. She has great name recognition and high approvals. Of course, Barack Obama being her husband, that helped a lot, and Barack Obama still remains very popular. And Michelle Obama actually has higher approvals than her husband, which is very interesting. But she was not a hugely controversial first lady, and she was beloved by the American public. I mean, definitely more with Democrats more than Republicans, but even among Republicans, her approval is not horrible. This is a candidate that I think all Democrats could rally around. I mean, Obama was very popular among Democrats, and I think that she could kind of play that same card. She had a new Netflix documentary come out that I heard is very favorable to her. That will probably make people like her even more. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So if she was a vice presidential nominee, instead of Obama Biden, how it was in like the 2008 and 2012 campaigns, they could just switch around and make it Biden Obama, which I think is kind of funny. You can reuse some old bumper stickers, and that would be like a huge joke. Not that that's a huge pro, but I just included it. Some cons is she's never held an elected political office. She would be criticized that she doesn't have the experience. Even though she was first lady, which is a political office, she wasn't elected to it. She was just, I mean, you could argue that she was elected to it because her husband was elected to it, but she hasn't demonstrated that she can win an election on her own. Unlike Hillary Clinton, she was a senator, and although she was the wife of a former presidential or a former president, she was a Secretary of State. She was a senator, and she demonstrated that she really knew the policy work. And I think there would be an overall perception of corruption. People would say like, "Oh, Barack Obama is going to be running the White House again," and I think to deflect from this, the Biden will probably not choose her, just because there'd be this huge controversy that Obama is going to run the shadow government. And she would be a huge subject of criticism from the GOP. I mean, that would be what the Republican talking points would, they would hammer it every single day. And I think that she could be a distraction from Trump, because people would only focus on Michelle Obama. And she's also said publicly that she doesn't want the job. So, I mean, that's why I don't think she's going to be chosen. Next up is Stacey Abrams. Some of her pros. So she's from Georgia. I don't know if you all remember in 2018 there was a very contested the Georgia governor's race that got a lot of national media attention. A lot of money was poured into the state, and Stacey Abrams got national fame. And the end of this race was there was a lot of tension. A lot of people thought that Brian Kemp, he was the Secretary of State of Georgia at the time, was disenfranchising people from voting by clearing the voting rolls if there wasn't an exact match. And I can get into this in a later video, but I think there's a lot of pent-up anger among Democrats, and they want to see her succeed. And she's also from Georgia, so I think it would be likely that she could actually win Georgia if she was Biden's VP. I think she would appeal to a lot of the moderate and voters of color. Hillary Clinton did not do as well with African Americans and other minority groups. Not that they voted for Trump, but they kind of stayed home. I think Stacey Abrams would be a huge energizer, especially as the demographics are coming more diverse. I think she could project the message of inclusivity among Democrats. She's very smart and good on TV. She's like been doing a media blitz during the coronavirus, and she's very sharp. And so I think this is definitely a pro for her. And I think that a lot of Democrats are angry about the Georgia election and that they will be really motivated to turn out to vote if she was the vice president. All right, now moving on to some cons for Stacey Abrams. Kind of all she is known for is losing the gubernatorial election in Georgia in 2018. And there's been a lot of talks in the media, and she isn't necessarily the one to blame, but it's like she didn't concede right away, and she's saying, I deserve to be Georgia's governor. And while there might be some truth, and there was a little bit of sketchiness during the election, the fact that kind of her rise to fame is off kind of this mentality that, look, I'm totally a victim of this election. I should have won. That might not reflect well in the general election if just it's kind of people perceive her as a complainer and just kind of rah, rah, rah. So that could be a potential con. Next up, she's never held elected office. Obviously, she's been very successful in the state of Georgia at the state legislature level and has risen up there, but she hasn't been a senator or been in the House yet. So she hasn't really come outside of Georgia, and so it might make her appeal a lot less in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania that will matter the most in the election. Also, I don't really think that she brings a ton new to Biden. They're pretty close on policy. Joe Biden obviously does pretty well with the African American vote. I don't think bringing her on the ticket is necessarily going to change a lot. I guess potentially she could have some excitement with kind of the base, the liberal base, but like unlike someone like Elizabeth Warren or maybe someone more progressive, she doesn't really bring a whole lot just because they're so similar on policy. And next up, I think she would just be a frequent target of from the GOP. I think that if she were the vice presidential candidate, that it would be a whole focus on her. And I don't know if the Democrats want that. If they want the 2020 election to be a referendum on Stacey Abrams, there would just be all these ads about they would call her a sore loser in the 2018 election, and they would go back to that. And I don't really know if the Democratic National Committee wants that to be the focus. They want Trump to be the main focus and just have a lot of negative ads go on him. And they don't want kind of Stacey Abrams to be a huge distraction, I don't think. Next up is Elizabeth Warren. Some of the pros is she brings a lot of energy to the Biden ticket. I mean, on the debate stage, she consistently talked for the most time just because she was very energetic. She was a fighter. She interrupted people, but people didn't want to mess with her. She was someone that she really, really hammered her message down. She would appeal to the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So a lot of Bernie supporters were angry that Biden won the nomination. They feel that the DNC stole the election from Bernie. So I think that they would be happier if they had a progressive vice president who would maybe push for some policies like the wealth tax and just more redistribution of wealth. She connects very well with women across the board, younger to older voters, and I think we saw this during her campaign. I mean, she would take selfies at all of her campaign rallies, and I mean, she was really connected well with voters on a personal level, which I think would just drive up turnout among Democratic voters. And she has a long record of anti-corruption policy. She's very bright. Even if you don't agree with her policy, she's done a lot in terms of reforming the banking sector. So she has a record to run on. Some of her cons is that the GOP would label her as a socialist. We even saw this during the Democratic um, primary campaign. I mean, like the GOP would just hammer her and be like, look, Warren is actually the puppet master behind Biden. She's as bad as Bernie, and it's going to be a socialist takeover of the country. I think she would be perceived as a flip flopper. I mean, on Medicare for All, she was kind of a flip flopper. And if she accepted the vice presidential nominee for Biden, people would say, oh, well, she's not really sticking up for her values. And uh, she's just part of the Democratic establishment. She endorsed Hillary in 2016 instead of Bernie. So she tries to act like she's progressive, but she's really not. So you could see this perception. She consistently polled the worst among Democratic candidates against Trump. And I think there's a plethora of reasons why might this be the case. But it might not be good to put her as a vice presidential candidate because it could bring her down, bring Biden's numbers down against Trump. And I think that the Pocahontas, Trump calls her Pocahontas because she lied about her Native American heritage. She's only like 1/2000th Native American. And I mean, a lot of candidates have scandals. I think this one's going to stick because it's pretty easy to understand. And I really think that like this would just get hammered over and over again by the Trump campaign. And I think it would stick. It would be a huge negative. So next up, why is a vice presidential candidate important for Biden? I think it's especially important for Biden compared to other presidential nominees. Overall, I think Biden is a very weak candidate. He's very old. He's an old white man, which right now in the Democratic Party is not where all the energy is. And I just think Biden is a little bit out of his prime. I think he was very good, or he was a very good politician when he was in the Senate and when he was the vice presidential candidate. But I think he's kind of old and kind of lost some of his mojo that he had. He could be a one-term president, and so if he is a one-term president, then the vice presidential candidate would probably be next in line to be president. So this is something that would be very important for whoever is chosen. With the Tara Reade accusations, I think the vice presidential candidate would do a lot in defending Biden. Being a woman, I think this will help a lot. And also just having all the vice presidential candidates being women. Joe Biden has promised that he would pick one. I think this will help a lot in reaching across the aisle to female voters. And I mean, lastly, like I hate to even bring this up, but Biden's a very old president, and even with these Tara Reade accusations, there's a chance that Biden isn't even the Democratic candidate for president come election day. And if he's replaced or if he passes away, I think he will be replaced by the vice presidential candidate. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Just wanted to remind you. Next up is Amy Klobuchar. She ran for president in 2020, obviously. One of her pros is she's from Minnesota. She's from the Rust Belt. And I think this will just help her in proximity. I mean, Minnesota might even be a swing state in 2020. I've talked about it a lot. It was a close state in 2016. And obviously, it's right by Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, even Ohio and Iowa. She's won elections in these states. And she has a record of outperforming a lot of uptick Democrats. So she won by about 25 points in Minnesota in 2018, even though Hillary Clinton only won Minnesota by 1.5. So if the most important states are truly Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the three states that Trump flipped in 2016, handing him the presidency, then she could just do very well in these three states and appeal to kind of the white working class demographic. She has a huge alignment with Joe Biden on policy. I truly think Amy Klobuchar was the most moderate Democratic candidate on the debate stages consistently, and I think Joe Biden is a close second. So they're very close on policy. So I think this could help. People would not think that they are being disingenuous, and I think it could be a perfect fit. And Amy Klobuchar generally has high favorability among Democrats. She doesn't have any huge scandals that plague her. And she's among Democrats, she has high likability. Some of her cons is that this would anger progressives. Amy Klobuchar is very moderate, and she's been willing to make concessions on some of the more radical positions of the Democrat Party, and she's reaching across the aisle. She has a pattern of doing that, and I think this would just progressives in the Democratic Party would see this as a middle finger to them that the Democratic establishment does not care about them. Also, she doesn't excite voters of color. She did very poorly with African Americans and Latinos. In South Carolina, she only won 1% of African Americans, and in Nevada, she only won 4% of Latinos. So this would not bode well in the general election. Even though Joe Biden does pretty well among African Americans, Amy Klobuchar could drag him down with some groups, progressive and voters of color. She just doesn't really fire up the base. I think that some Democrats could see, like, oh, the Democratic establishment and Joe Biden, they only care about winning over the Trump voters, kind of the white working class. And I think turnout maybe could go down among Democrats if there is this perception. And secondly, I really think that she could be a Hillary 2.0. She doesn't have high favorability among the general electorate, and I think that she has a lot of similarities with Hillary Clinton. She's supposedly to be the safest bet, but I think a lot of swing voters and Republicans dislike Amy Klobuchar for similar reasons why they disliked Hillary Clinton. And obviously Hillary Clinton lost. So lastly, the number one candidate I think who could be vice president is Kamala Harris. Some of her pros is that she's very popular among Democrats. She's been a senator for a while, and I think she's just doing very well in polls among Democrats. She appeals to multiple wings of the Democratic Party. In the 2020 primary election on the Democratic side, people even criticize her for trying to appeal to everyone, but I think that she's kind of solidified herself as being in between the progressive and the moderate wing of the Democratic Party. And I think this could kind of be a safety pick. Like, it wouldn't anger very many people in the Democratic Party. She's a fighter. She's demonstrated that throughout her career as a politician. And she was very feisty on the debate stage at times, and she would not be afraid to go after people. And in the debate with Mike Pence, presumably if she's the vice president nominee, she would really go after him and his record. And also, she just energizes voters of color, which I think will be very important going into the 2020 election, considering turnout was down among African Americans and other groups in the 2016 election compared to 2012 and 2008 when Barack Obama was the nominee for president. Some cons is that she attacked Biden during the debates pretty harshly. This was on school busing, and afterwards it was realized that her attack on Biden was not really relevant, and also it wasn't a fair attack because she probably would have supported the same policies that Biden supported. And she really hammered Biden, and it did help her in the polls in the short term. But overall, I think it could have frayed the relationship between Biden and Kamala Harris. She polled badly against Trump. Like Elizabeth Warren, she didn't poll as well as Joe Biden did against Trump, so she could just bring his numbers down. So she was a prosecutor in California for a while, and she locked up a lot of Californians, a lot of people of color. And I think you could actually see a contrast. Trump with his First Step Act and criminal justice reform. You could see him playing the card that, look, I'm trying to I'm not trying to lock up as many voters of color, and I'm really trying to reform the system. And look at Kamala, look at her record. She's not interested in that. I don't think this would work on a lot of voters because they might see through this campaign message, but her prosecutor history, I think, could hurt her. And also, I think she could be perceived as a flip-flopper. In the 2020 campaign for president, at first she supported Medicare for all, then she didn't, and it was really unclear. People had no idea what she was doing. And her 2020 campaign wasn't really based on policy. People kind of thought she was trying to appeal to different wings at different times, and there were sound bites of her saying two different things in different places. So this could hurt her as a vice presidential nominee. So thank you for watching my video. Remember, please subscribe if you want to be eligible for the giveaway. Obviously, I'm only going to give that to 3 of my lucky subscribers. And please comment what you thought about this video and future ideas for other videos. And thank you for watching.